Hello everyone. Welcome to Upper Room Ministries Sunday School here in Dover, Pennsylvania. We're so glad that you've joined us today. We will be continuing our study of the prophecies of the Bible which have come to pass and which have not yet come to pass. We are continuing in the book of Daniel. We finished Daniel chapter 5 last session. I'd like to start with a correction with the prophecy found in Daniel chapter 5, verses 26 through 29. I identified that as prophecy 2450. That was incorrect. I had written the number down wrong. That's prophecy 2551. If anybody was thrown off by that, I apologize. So now we shall start anew in chapter 6. Here, this is where Babylon has fallen to the Medes and the Persians, and Babylon is now under control of King Darius of Mede. And this is the chapter where Daniel is thrown into the lion's den, which is something King Darius didn't want to happen. And after Daniel was cast into the lion's den, Darius spoke to Daniel, starting in verse 16. It says, Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spoke and said unto Daniel, Thy God whom thou servest, continually he will deliver thee. Yes, that was a prophecy from King Darius, prophecy 2552. And as we all know, God did indeed deliver Daniel from the lions by shutting the lions' mouths. All right. We now head on over to Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of King Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Now, first of all, Daniel chapters 7 through 12 all cover the visions that he had received from God. Now you'll notice here in verse 1 it says, in the first year of King Belshazzar, king of Babylon. As we all know, Belshazzar was defeated by the Medes back in chapter 5. So Daniel is not written in chronological order. You have the history that Daniel lived through in the first 6 chapters, and then the second 6 chapters record all the visions that he received. The first vision coming during the first year of Belshazzar the king, before Babylon was defeated by the Medes and the Persians. Alright. Verse 2. Daniel spoke and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven strove upon the great sea, and 4 beasts came up from the sea, diverse from one another. Right. Prophecy 2553 is in verse 4. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as man, and a man's heart was given to it. Alright, verse 5, prophecy 2554. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. Verse 6, prophecy 2555. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And verse 7, prophecy 2556. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke into pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. All right. The common interpretation of these 4 beasts is that the lion represents Babylon, the bear represents Medo-Persia, the leopard represents Greece, and the 4th beast represents Rome. All right. For example, okay. All right. For instance, with the in the case of the bear, it has 3 ribs in its mouth. It's believed that the 3 ribs symbolized the conquest of Babylon and Lydia and Egypt by the Medes and the Persians. And the bear did devour much flesh. Yeah, with victories such as that, there's going to be a lot of carnage also. In verse 6, in the leopard being Greece with wings of a fowl. It's believed that represents the swiftness of Alexander the Great conquering the known world. I mean, after all, he conquered the known world by age 30. He was a military genius, and it simply did not take him long to conquer everything. It's said that once Alexander the Great conquered everything, he began to cry because there was nothing left for him to conquer. I don't know how true that is, but nevertheless, he committed suicide by age 33, most likely, perhaps, because he really did have nothing left to conquer and thus had nothing left to live for. Which is a great illustration about what happens when you when all you desire is earthly things. And even when you have all the earthly things you want, you're still not satisfied. You still want more. And then with the 4th beast, representing Rome, it says that it was diverse from all beasts, simply implying that the world had never seen anything like the Roman Empire before, and therefore had no earthly beasts to which to compare it. So it had to be something completely new and completely different. Now, like I said, that's the common interpretation. Whether it's true or not, whether that's the correct interpretation, I really don't know. I mean, we'll never truly know until the end of the age. In actuality, I heard one scholar say that these 4 beasts could actually represent kingdoms that would come long after the period of Daniel. He described the lion to be symbolic of England, because England's symbol is the lion. The bear, obviously representing Russia. The leopard, representing Germany. He talks about the swiftness of the 3rd Reich taking over Europe in rapid fashion. And the 4 heads are to represent 4 Reichs. The 4th Reich having not yet taken place yet. And the last beast, again, something the world has never seen before. Quite possibly the second Roman Empire. I mean, who knows? And the reason there's some credence to the possibility that these kingdoms are of modern day kingdoms or future ones is found in Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 and 2. It says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns." Did you catch that? 10 horns. "And on his horns were 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority." Now, as you can see, characteristics of the 4 beasts are found in this one beast, which is most likely said to be a beast that will come at the end of the age. I mean, obviously, Revelation was written long after Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and the Roman Empire had already come to pass. So maybe they are future kingdoms. I really don't know. But we'll eventually know come the end of the age. Okay. Verse 8. Prophecy 25:57. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up from them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns, plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. It's believed that this little horn represents Antichrist. The common belief is that there'll be a 10-kingdom alliance, 10 kingdoms or something. Then along come the Antichrist, and he will overthrow 3 of the kings, and then thus take his place in power as a world leader. All right, and that's a prophecy that is yet to come. All right, then verse 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool, his throne like the fiery flame, and the wheels as burning fire. I shall now read Revelation chapter 1, verses 14 and 15, which has very similar wording. It reads, let's start with 13. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the Son of Man, clothed with the garment down to his feet, and girded about his chest with a golden band. His head and hair were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes like a flame of fire. So we have white as snow, hair like wool, and fire. Very similar to this description right here. However, the Ancient of Days is not Jesus, but Father God. However, as Jesus said, I and my Father are one, so it's really not that surprising that they would both look very similar in 2 different references. All right, verse 10, prophecy 25:59. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and books were opened. That is also found in the book of Revelation, the Great White Throne Judgment. So it's, again, prophecy 25:59. Verse 11, 25:60. I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spoke, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, given to the burning flame. So here the little horn will be vanquished, taken down, and the 4th beast will go down in flames. Then verse 12, 25:61. As concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season at a time. The beasts, the kingdoms that came beforehand, they had dominion, and it was eventually taken away, though they were allowed to live for a certain length of time. Okay, and then verses 13 and 14, 25:62. I saw in the night visions, behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, that's Jesus, and came to the Ancient of Days, that's Father God, and they brought him near before him, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and language should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that shall not be destroyed. So this is describing the second coming of the Messiah, and how he shall have dominion over everything. Okay. Moving on, 15 and 16. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked the truth of all this. So he told me, and he made me know the interpretation of the thing. So now Daniel is given the interpretation of his vision. Verse 17, 25:63. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall rise out of the earth. Okay, so the beasts represent kings and kingdoms. And 25:64, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. So in the end, the saints of God will take possession of the kingdom. Again, referring to the second coming of Christ and the millennial reign. Okay, then verse 19, continuing, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, broke in pieces, and stamped residue with his feet, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and others which came up before the three fell, even that of the horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. Okay, now Daniel's being given the interpretation of the fourth beast. If you go back in verse 19, it says, whose teeth were of iron. This is another point that scholars make, to say that the fourth beast represented the Roman Empire, because the vision that Daniel received back in chapter 2, we had the image, well, the legs of iron were represented the Roman Empire, and here this beast has teeth of iron. So, yeah, that could be a sign that this represents Rome. Okay, verses 21 and 22, 25:60. Prophecy 25:65. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints, and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. So this is most likely talking about the Antichrist having his 3.5-year reign of terror, called the Great Tribulation, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints. So after his reign of terror, Antichrist would be defeated, little horn defeated, and the saints would possess the kingdom. Alright. Verse 23, Prophecy 25:66. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, shall tread it down, and break it into pieces. That certainly is a very good description of the Roman Empire, as their empire spread throughout, Europe and parts of Asia, North Africa, even all the way to Spain, and perhaps even England. I'm not certain about that, but wouldn't surprise me if the Roman Empire did indeed spread that far. It was huge. All right. Okay, and then verse 24, prophecy 25:67, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them. He shall be diverse from these, and he shall subdue the 3 kings. So this is the interpretation of the 10 horns, and the little horn that will rise after the 10 horns, and subdue 3 kings, which is the interpretation of the little horn uprooting 3 of the horns. So that right there is prophecy 25:68. Okay. Then verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. Again, this is the little horn. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. Okay? That's most likely a reference to the 3.5-year Great Tribulation. And then we go to verse 26, prophecy 25:70. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end. Again, that's the fall of the Antichrist Empire. And then verse 27, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Him being the Messiah. That's again prophecy 25:71. Okay. We now go to chapter 8. This covers Daniel's second vision of the ram and the goat. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, so we're still in the period of time where Babylon reigns supreme and have not yet fallen to the Medes and Persians. After that which appeared to me unto me at the first, and I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up my eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, and northward, and southward, so that no beasts might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hands, but he did according to his will, and became great. Now the ram represents Medio-Persia, and the 2 horns represent the Mede king, and the Persian king, Darius and Cyrus. Moving on, prophecy 25:73, starting in verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Now this goat represents the Grecian Empire, and the long horn represents Alexander the Great. And then verses 6 and 7, prophecy 25:74. And when he came to the ram that had the 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power, and I saw him close unto the ram, and he moved with a collar against him, and smote the ram, and broke his 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped on him. So this here is a prophecy of the war between the Grecians and the Medes and the Persians. The Medes and the Persians would fall to Greece, and Greece would step forward and become the new world power. Okay, and then verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great when he was strong. The great horn was broken, for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. Now, now what's coming out of Alexander the Great would be 4 nations. These nations are Greece, Turkey, Syria, and Egypt. 4 kingdoms that would arise out of this one big Grecian kingdom. Then you go back to the vision of the leopard with the 4 heads. Well, this adds credence to the idea that the leopard with the 4 head represents Greece, because 4 kings, 4 kingdoms would come out of Greece. And here we have 4 kingdoms coming out of this one horn that we know represents Greece. Okay. Now, verse 9, prophecy 25:76, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceedingly great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground, and stamped on them. That's prophecy 25:77. So here the little horn is mentioned coming out of one of the four kingdoms that came forth from the Grecian Empire. So this would seem to suggest that the little horn, the Antichrist, would come somewhere out of Greece or Turkey or Syria or Egypt. So one of those areas, it seems that the Antichrist will emerge. Okay? And then verse 11, prophecy 25:78. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of hosts, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and in the place of his sanctuary was cast down. So he will most likely proclaim to be God, magnifying himself even to the prince of the hosts. So yes, the Antichrist is considered to be someone who will proclaim to be God. Book of Revelation, his accomplice, the false prophet, will make fire come down from heaven and do all these signs and wonders, thus making people believe, perhaps he is God, or perhaps the true Messiah. Okay. Well, that's all the time we have right now. We shall finish up in chapter 8 starting next time. Thank you.
Let you